Despite all the obstacles in my way, I got you guys one. Let's document it. Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. That's right, it's the $50,000 Greeny review and demo. And the only reason why I'm even able to make this video for you guys is because a gracious viewer of the show who is a big Metallica fan wanted to see it documented, so he drove a big long trek to drop this off for me. He even put it in the box just to make it all look good. He did not ship this at all, it's too risky. I have no money into it, I have no feelings attached. This is a completely unbiased review of this really expensive piece and historic release. Alright, here's our case. It is all aged. Now what it looks like they did is they just took like a black charcoal and just like dusted it over top of it. They beat it up like they normally do for their age lift and reissues. This is not the first guitar to get that, but they definitely went a little bit heavier. I'd be interested to see Hammett's actual one to see if it looks similar to this or if this is just a stock aging job that kind of, you know, varies depending on which one you have. But I will always love what they did here. Green, you know, after Peter Green, the initial owner that was famous, you got Gary Moore, and then finally Hammett. But this is all scraped off because it was on the case longer, then Moore had it for a bit, and then Hammett is like brand new. In fact, I would say they more heavily aged the bottom, and that makes complete sense because cases get scuffed around all the time. But that's enough looking at the case. Let's turn it around and actually open it. This guitar certainly has a lot to live up to. Let's see how they did. Alright, there it is, in all of its flame-topped gloriness. All the cool wood grain going on here with the flame top. We got our mix-match knobs as we should have. We've got our finger resting wear. The pickups are in the correct orientation for this particular guitar. Then moving up to the board, wow, that is a really dinged up headstock. So yeah, I'd say it looks like Greeny from the front, but I think where all the crazy agedness really comes into play is the back of this thing. I mean, we've got this giant buckle wear area where all the finish has just pretty much been taken off. We've got like all the separate nicks and ding areas right here. Of course, they have the KH that he engraved in his on this, so I guess technically one of the big complaints was this has already been done before in the Collector's Choice edition, but this one is technically different because Kirk Hammett didn't own it at that time. So that's something that this release has going for it. And let's check out our neck wear here. Very extreme. However, it's very, very smooth. I remember thinking on like some of those Noel Gallaghers that it was like very off-putting at first when you have this, but this just feels like a well-worn beast. And I think it's because every area where your hand actually comes in contact, right here and on the other side of the neck, has been all worn in like that. So I think that's why the feeling is about right, because once you start feeling the glossiness on the back, it definitely does stand up a little bit more. But by far my most favorite thing here is, did this get broken in shipping to him? No, that's part of the specs because his has a slight headstock repair as well. So, of course they had to replicate that. And I know that sounds goofy, but whenever the custom shop has to replicate a repair, it's just hilarious to me and I love it. Now, is that an actual repair? Nah, they just scored it. But all these have his original serial number on it, and then where that blue tape is, they tell you what number this is out of 50. And in case you missed it, each and every single one of these was $50,000, but it came with this great experience. Gibson really tried to crack down and not sell to people who would resell them. However, did that go according to plan? No. There's been 2 on Reverb. I know of at least 2 dealers that were at the event who, through the use of a couple of other people, were able to get 3 of each that they then sold on to their own customers. And I've heard mixed reviews about the event. Like you can see this beautiful photo right here of everybody that was there, and I've talked to about 8 to 10 of them. Pretty much everybody says they love their guitar and they don't regret that. I actually talked to a few people before they got their guitars. They were just saying, oh yeah, I'm gonna instantly flip this. I only wanted the trip and to meet Kirk Hammett and do that whole event. But then they changed their minds after they actually got the guitar. Now, as far as the actual event itself, I thought people were gonna love that, but honestly, I've heard more negative things than positive. They felt it wasn't very well organized, it was very rushed, they didn't treat them like people that just spent $50,000 on a guitar. But I've also heard some people that just absolutely adored the event because, hey, you got to sit with Kirk Hammett at the leading table there at dinner. And I suppose to be fair to Gibson here, this was their first big major event that had a huge audience. Now, there was one last year for the Korina release. We documented those in this episode. I still regret not experiencing something like that, but that was a much smaller group of people because dealers also got that Korina run. But this one was a garage exclusive. You had to buy it through them. And the experience was not part of the price of the guitar. It was just an invitation supplied to you, but they paid for everything. So it was included, but it wasn't included, probably for tax reasons, if we're being honest here. Because there's some people who just bought the guitar and they didn't care about the event. So hopefully Gibson gets better about planning the events in the future, because I mean, this was the first big one. But I would love to see what they do in the future, because the people who went to this event were told of next year's $50,000 guitar with the whole event. So I could spoil everything that I have been told, but honestly, that's just not fun. I would rather be excited and just learn about it throughout the year. So I'm not going to go too deep into that information until we get leaks from like other sources. So you probably thought these things sold out nearly instantaneously. They actually did not. In fact, despite Gibson removing them from their website, they did not sell every single one of these by the time of the event. Now, when you're watching this video, I can say with certainty that they have 2 of them locked up in the vault. However, they're now under contract. So I believe it's fair to say it is official at this point in time that Greeny is completely sold out. However, if you did miss out on this release and you do want one, but $50K was a bit too much, apparently dealers are being let in on this, but for a different model. Like, we're gonna have a couple of different iterations of Greeny. The only one that I know that's coming very soon, like if you talk to dealers, they'll tell you about them. It's supposed to be like a $20,000-ish custom shop release that probably just doesn't have the Brazilian rosewood fretboard. I'd imagine it'd still be aged, but we'll just have to see what the future holds. So if you wanted one of these, the used market is your best bet. There's one guy who had number 44. He also just listed a different one because apparently he got another one. So he's going to end up keeping number 44. But you can always make an offer. I know from experience trying to buy that one, he's fairly flexible on that price. However, one pro about the whole event is they actually gave you a pretty sweet goodie bag, which the viewer was kind enough to bring with us. So you got a little Gibson Garage thing. That's not necessarily exclusive here, but you do get a Greeny branded bag of coffee. Let's be real here. Nobody's going to be able to use it if you consider this to actually be part of the case candy. I think you can buy this stuff regularly, so it's not necessarily exclusive, but I think most people would view this as exclusive case candy that you have to keep with the guitar for its collectible value. It's like those silly little syrup bottles on the Canadian exclusive model that we talked about in this episode. You can't ever eat that stuff. What else do we got in here? It's one of those mini guitars. For me personally, I've never really liked these things because they just don't look that good. However, this is the first one I think I have to say I actually like. Perhaps since I looked at one of these the last time, they've made the dimensions better, or maybe this was a custom run for this. I'm not entirely too sure, but the dimensions are actually proper. The headstock doesn't look absolutely silly like they used to. Like, it looks very similar to what it is. So, you know what? Props on this company. I was wrong at first. Next up in our goodie bag, it looks like we have some sort of a mug, which looks like something that could easily be replaceable if yours happened to have broken in shipping or something. It's just the Gibson Garage mug here. But oh man, this right here, I'm jealous of because I absolutely adore this. It's a big hunk of mahogany, and it just says, you know, Kirk Hammett Greeny experience. You got to have a great time at the event. Like, this is something you put up in your office as a bragging rights. It even has the dates of the whole event. This is cool, and I would love to see more of what this is. Like, I would love to see wooden COAs become a thing for Gibson, because then they're a little bit more special than just paper. But at the same time, I mean, when you're paying $50,000 for a guitar, you really need something cool like this. So 100% love this little mahogany block right here. And if all this isn't enough for you, I suppose we still need to look in our case yet. We have the actual COA. It's just your regular booklet here, except for it's nicer than normal. They did go a little bit premium here. Feels like it might be made of real leather. Embroidered Gibson custom logo. Got a picture of Kirk Hammett here with his guitar. Okay, it does look like he signed the photo. So the guitar itself is not signed anywhere, but the photos are. And I will just let you go ahead and browse that real quick. We get a case of Kirk Hammett signature picks. It's sealed, so nobody will ever use these. All right, looks like we might even have a strap in here. Let's see, is it the same as the Korina one? No, it's a little bit different. I feel like we have seen this before. I mean, it's Gibson branded, so they might make it. You might be able to buy it separately. This is a good strap. I like it. It's very soft, but very slightly grippy. We've got the Schaller strap lock counterparts. In case you missed it, this has black Schallers stock from the factory. And oh my goodness, I think this is the only guitar that I can think of where the medallion comes factory in the case, rather than factory on the guitar and you have to swap it back and feel like a jerk for doing it. That's funny. We've got a purple Kirk Hammett signature pick. I love these picks. I used to have a green one somewhere, but I lost it. And then finally, just all your basic historic case candy instructions. And it also has your serial number on it. And the only piece of case candy I don't have with me today is the VIP lanyard access pass. It looks like this. There's a guy selling his set for $1,000 if you're interested on Reverb. So yeah, a pretty good little spread. It was definitely an unforgettable luncheon. Oh wait, that should be for the Skinner burst.
Yes.
But now for the part that nobody would dare to do except for me. Let's tear apart the $50,000 Greeny. See what makes it tick. Which, by the way, removing a few screws on your guitar doesn't hurt anything as long as you put them back correctly. But let's go ahead and see what these pickups are. I was shocked. They actually call them Rhythm Greeny and Lead Greeny. So here's what I'm betting. This is not the only guitar that's going to have these. We're eventually probably going to see these things for sale separately after they've ran through all the other Greeny models. So we've got the Big Mac Daddy, the custom shop we know of. I'm sure we'll get a Gibson USA release and then eventually an Epiphone. That's my best guess as to what's going to happen, and it's going to take like 4 or 5 years. Let's go ahead and take a look at this. So we do indeed have the long neck tenon. If we had anything less, I would be very shocked. You can see the maple block of wood that caps off the truss rod, as well as the maple sitting on top of the mahogany. Bridge pickup cavity is more the same. I will say it is a bit odd to look in here and see like perfect lacquer, whereas everything else has been intentionally aged. But let's be fair here. Most people are not going to be taking their greenies apart to look at it. But the attention to detail here on the wear to the pickup rings is exquisite. I mean, you got little areas right here that have been scraped. And then all the edges have really been rounded. It looks like his might have a crack in the pickup ring, but they just scored it right there to give you the same vibe without losing any of the functionality. And the covers were definitely aged somehow. They've got that all the plating has been worn off look to them, but they're not aging the backsides. Well, unless you count your decal getting ripped, part of the aging process. I really like this bridge pickup. It's got some more scratches to make it look like cracks. You see how the neck pickup has those dome slotted screws? The bridge pickup actually has a flat-headed one. So that likely means Hammetts were replaced at one point in time. I mean, that's something you're never gonna notice just looking at a guitar. So it's always fun to see like small little minute differences. Like, for example, on the Adam Jones release, like some of his screws here were different than all the rest. And it's such a moot point to like put in your advertising. So it's nice to, you know, put appreciation where it is due on this one. You can see a little bit of greening going on here. As far as the readings of the pickups within the circuit, 8.22 k ohms in the neck, 8.58 in the bridge, and our middle position just for fun, 420. 19. Yeah, I know I have the neck pickup upside down. I'm just doing that to generate comments. As far as the bridge, it's a regular Gibson ABR1, no retaining wire, the saddles don't fall out or anything like that. And they've aged the hardware so much, I mean, especially the tailpiece right here, like it's hard to actually get it off. I had a couple of flakes of this stuff come off because they just, yeah, they did something to make those things rusty. But that bridge is indeed mounted correctly. The tailpiece is lightweight aluminum, you can see how they aged that one up. It's just your regular historic style. And yeah, those are crusty. I really love the way that they age this style of knob, the way they get the green right at the skirt. I'll be honest, I really haven't seen too much original 50s knobs to say whether that looks good or not, but I mean, it looks similar to what I've seen on like Reverb photos of a couple that I have seen. Then you have your famous reflector knobs over here that were replaced, assumingly to have a feel difference. You know, you're on a dark stage, you don't know if you're on your bridge or your neck volume control, so this is a very quick way to know. But they aged the toppers of those very similar to the way that they did the whole matted pickup cover thing. Let's take some time to appreciate this. We got a little bit of a score mark right there. We got the nicks and dings all over. Very heavy in this area because obvious reasons, that's where you're playing. We've got some bigger ones in this area with your arm resting wear, exposing the bare maple right here that has been all dirtied up. Lots more dings. I mean, they had a job to do, recreate all the aging of the Greeny. So I would say Tom Murphy and his team here did a good job at doing what they were told to do. If you don't like aged guitars, you just don't like aged guitars. But on high-end replicas like this, it does make sense for them to do it. Here's a close-up look at the finger wear. I had a Spotlight Special that had a wear spot like that on it. So apparently some people like to anchor their pinky like right here, and then they do their picking. And it's the light rubbing right here. Sometimes people actually engrave the guitar through years and years of very slight micro rubs like that. It's a character's plate wear mark. Moving on to the fretboard here, this just looks like your basic custom shop thing. They didn't really do too much to like try to age the fretboard to look like his. I think this is just maybe a little bit of player's wear from the current owner of this. But who knows? Maybe that was there and I'm wrong. It's possible. But these are not actual fingernail divots by any means. But you've got 22 frets here, vintage style. Now I have heard during the Greeny event, he actually had Greeny refretted. And all these replicas do indeed have fret nibs. I'm not sure if he had fret nib retention when he had it refretted by whoever he did it with. I think I heard it was Joe Glazier, but again, I could be wrong on that. All this is secondhand. I have no first-hand knowledge. But after how much this thing has been played, I wouldn't imagine he had much fret nibs left anyway. We have a nut width of 1.68 inches, and that increases to 2.05 by the 12th. First fret neck depth, pretty chunky, 0.92, and that increases to 1.03 by the 12th. And here's what that neck looks like. First fret and 12th fret over here. Just nice and rounded. But now let's check out this headstock. So you have these scratches on the front, probably because that's where the repair on the back kind of slightly broke through. So they replicated that. We do not have a Les Paul model silkscreen decal because it's been worn off over the years of playing it. Truss rod looks good on this one. Nice aged Gibson logo with all the side wear. Typical historic style truss rod cover. But my goodness, was I shocked. I thought these were locking Spurzl tuners. I didn't even know Spurzl made non-locking ones. We'll see some more of that here on the back. Moving on to the back here, looking inside our control cavities, everything is nice and clean in here. The flames that you see through the back are phenomenal on this one. You almost need a clear backplate just to appreciate the full effect here. But it's just your regular Gibson branded pots. You've got their style of bumblebee capacitors, wired up 50s style, as it should be. I mean, if I was going to nitpick something, maybe we could have had non-Gibson branded ones, but it appears on the original Greeny somebody had to replace the output jack plate because it's black instead of the cream that it should be. Well, that's pretty common to happen. And then there's our Schaller strap locks in our usual locations. Here's another close-up look at his KH engraving. So they definitely did a huge aging job back here. We'll just kind of take a second to allow you to appreciate the artwork that went into this. I would say my favorite thing is this right here because it shows that they've been up here doing solos and playing and like anchoring their thumb right here. So it's kind of wore the wood away just a tad as well. And then I really appreciate the wear along the edges, especially right here. They have literally rounded over the guitar more so than it normally is. These three famous dudes taking this guitar on a world tour. Multiple times. We'll just take a look along the edges here. Beautiful mahogany that they used for these. But look at the flame and the cutaway right there. And all of our wear on this side. Now we will move up the side of the neck. So there's a few things I want to talk about as far as the neck goes, and it's mainly the areas that you can't normally see, or you'd have to have the guitar in person to feel it. So the bare wood lines up perfectly with the binding right here. So I believe they've done a little bit of sanding to make that effortless. You don't feel any ridge. But as soon as you get to a finished area, you can really feel a ridge between these areas. Now, is that a good or a bad thing? I mean, I guess I'll leave that up to you. I mean, that's just them replicating the aging that happened on this particular one. But you can see where they've sanded the finish down a little bit right here. It just kind of makes it feel strange in this area. That's just what I'm saying. But everything in your main area is very comfy to play. And that's why you buy an aged guitar normally, outside of the collectible value of this particular one, is because the necks feel interesting. And most people would say better. And then yes, 100% without a doubt, that's just removed finish to look like a crack. I don't even think they necessarily scored it. If they did, it was just very, very light. But you can see the filled in Kluson tuner holes underneath each of those, as is on the original, and our serial number. Nice and aged at the top as well. And all said and done, the solid-bodied guitar weighs 8 pounds, 12.7 ounces. I guess let's go ahead, plug it in, and hear how it sounds, where the true magic is supposed to lie.
Wow, it feels like I'm fighting a final boss. Like, this has been a big release of a guitar that I've been waiting for. And yeah, I've got to say these pickups are fantastic. They have a very nice clarity to them. I mean, this is the distorted channel. We'll do clean tones here in a second, but even distorted... Yeah, I would say that cleans up very nicely as well. And that's just playing with the volume controls. Okay, yeah, we get a lot of cool tones out of this one too, clean. However, the neck pickup is not upside down to give you that kind of weird, quacky, out of phase tone. You achieve that by flipping the magnets in it. That way the pickups are out of phase with each other. So it's really just the middle position where you'll kind of get that interesting effect. So that makes the middle position very iconic for this particular guitar. Now that we know all about the $50,000 Greeny, what are my final thoughts on this thing? You know, it's really hard to live up to the expectations of being a brand new guitar and commanding such a ridiculous price point, but if there was a brand new guitar that could fetch that kind of money, I would say Gibson did a very good job on this. The guitar exceeded my expectations going into it, and I feel like that's how a lot of people also felt. And again, I have no money in this one. I mean, if it sucked, I would have told you, but no, I honestly cannot say it was a bad guitar. Now, is it really worth the $50,000 that collectors will pay? Probably not as a guitar. I mean, it's very similar to an R9, just straight off the shelf. I mean, even those are kind of expensive, $6,500 plus. But it's been aged, and it really comes down to these unique pickups. So I'm betting we're gonna see these thrown onto a whole bunch of other things. I mean, this is just the first of many that I assume are coming. So yeah, you did a good job. You made a good guitar. I'm happy with it. Although, I will say, my favorite thing out of all this is this little hunk of wood here. It's just cool. All right, we'll see you tomorrow. Take care. If you enjoyed tonight's episode and you want to see some more really expensive recreated guitars, why don't you check out the Slash Double Neck? Because that was quite a treat in and of itself as well.